Let's start off with markets coming off slightly over the last couple of sessions. It seems that quite a few investors looking relatively bearish. What is driving sentiment right now? Do you think it's because we've just seen markets rallying so significantly that we are starting to see investors locking in some profits?
Yes, Elaine, that's actually very spot on. I think the recent bullish run we've seen in the market has been driven particularly by the more optimistic release of numbers from the banks. Initially, the outlook for the sector was pretty clouded. Obviously, given the overhang of the debt situation. But I think with the release of numbers by a few of the banks, particularly GT Bank and Zenith, which posted pretty decent numbers, the outlook was rather bullish. We think that the market is beginning to lock in some profits, but overall there seems to be an overwhelming drive for a positive momentum.
Well, you mentioned some banks that have come out with results, and we know that many banks have actually missed the earnings deadline. Just looking at First Bank, which came out with results earlier in the week, most investors relatively disappointed, but unfortunately we know that the numbers are looking slightly better than what we saw in the previous year.
Well, that is true. Well, like I said, I think GT Bank and Zenith were obviously the stellar performers. First Bank's numbers were not spectacular, given its history. But I think, like you said, it's still positive, at least much better than what we saw, at least in September last year. That is obviously going to be a gradual recovery. Same thing that was the situation also for UBA, which also posted in numbers. But I think overall, like has been adduced, rather for the sector, we believe that the positive that has been taken from all of the reforms that has been ongoing is the fact that the banks have had a chance to largely clean up their books. So we believe that right now the momentum rather is on the positive side for positive earnings, obviously dependent on an uptick, with the economy generally.
First Bank, from an equity perspective, we know has been underperforming, is looking relatively cheap at this stage. Would you be picking up the stock at these levels?
Well, First Bank obviously looks slightly underpriced based on current valuations. However, we still think that there are concerns with respect to its ability to significantly up its game with respect to earnings growth. Top line may not necessarily be challenged, but we think that there may still be room for additional provisioning going forward as the deadlines or as the timeline for loans begin to mature going into the rest of the year. Also significant investments by that particular bank with respect to one or two transactions that may have not particularly favored it may also weigh down the stock, but it still remains a fundamentally strong investment option over the long term.
Victor, we know that retail deposits have also been under pressure in Nigeria. Just looking at Zenith Bank, which posted a 12% increase in profits before tax, what is your view on retail deposits? Do you think that it's going to start looking far better as we head towards the end of the year?
Well, interestingly, it's obvious that the strategy has obviously flipped for the banks, for the banking sector as a whole. Previously, the move was to to grow deposits, usually via term deposits, which obviously is the more expensive indicator of deposit growth, deposit liability. Most banks have begun to refocus their deposit generation, on the retail end of it. However, that itself is also not particularly bullish at the moment because situation we've seen across the banks is such that virtually all banks are sitting on quite a significant amount of liquidity. The challenge, therefore, is what avenues to deploy these liabilities in order to begin to earn some returns on them. So they are not particularly the focus, even though it's now on more retail type deposits. There isn't any there isn't much of an aggression in terms of that growth. I think more importantly, the banks are beginning to refocus their strategy on efficiency. being able to adequately deploy whatever resources that are at their disposal currently to earn some decent returns, given the challenging environment under which they operate.
Another thing that investors need to be looking out for is, of course, Acting President Goodluck Jonathan. He is expected to be signing in the 2010 budget today, and we know there has been quite a few disagreements about the actual figures involved. What is your view on this?
I'm not in terms of the numbers. I think what has happened was the initial budget proposed by Mr. President was in the range of 4.1 trillion. What has now been passed by both houses of Nigeria's legislature has come up to about 4.6 trillion. The acting president obviously just wanted to look to those numbers, basically in a bit more detail to be sure that there aren't any major discrepancies before he puts pen to paper. However, his media spokesperson was speaking earlier this morning indicating that he will probably sign that into law before the end of the day.